I didn't waste my life doing nothing. That's the part that took me the longest to understand. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't careless. I wasn't someone who sat around and let life pass him by. I was busy, genuinely, relentlessly, impressively busy. I wasted my life doing everything except the one thing that actually mattered. And I didn't figure that out until I was standing at my wife's grave, in the rain, holding an umbrella, thinking she always wanted to go to Portugal. We never went. I am 88 years old, and I have something to tell you. My name is Walter. I was an accountant for 38 years, senior partner by the time I was 51, the kind of man who other men described as solid, reliable, together. My wife Margaret and I were married for 54 years. She died 4 years ago, quietly in a hospital bed, with the television on and her hand in mine. And the week after her funeral, when I was sitting alone in a house that suddenly felt like a museum of things we meant to do, I started a list.
Not a to-do list, a didn't-do list. Every place we talked about going, every experience we said we'd have when the timing was better, every conversation we kept meaning to have when things slowed down. The list was 4 pages long, 4 pages of postponed living. And that list is the reason I'm talking to you today. I want you to think about something. Think about the last time you said the phrase one day I'll travel more, one day I'll slow down, one day I'll have that conversation with my father, one day I'll spend more time with the kids, one day I'll start the thing I've been thinking about starting, one day I'll prioritize what actually matters. When did you last say that? And more importantly, how many times have you said it? Because here is what I want you to understand about one day. It is not a plan, it is not a promise, it is not even really a hope. One day is what we say when we want to believe something without committing to it. It is the comfortable middle ground between doing the thing and admitting we are never going to do it. It lets us feel like we haven't given up on something while simultaneously not doing it. And the truly insidious part, the part that makes it so effective as a self-deception, is that it is completely invisible. You don't feel yourself postponing. You feel yourself being responsible. You feel yourself being patient, being realistic, being smart about timing. But time, real time, the only currency that actually matters is draining away with every one day you issue. I issued thousands of them. I was the most prolific issuer of one days you have ever met. Margaret used to say, Walter, you have more one days than a calendar. She said it laughing. I laughed too. Neither of us understood what she was actually describing. Let me tell you about Portugal. It was 1987. Margaret had been reading a book, I don't remember what it was, and it was set in Lisbon. She finished it in 2 days, which was unusual for her, and she put it down and looked at me across the dinner table and said, Walter, I want to go to Lisbon. Not someday. Actually go. I remember exactly what I said. I said, let's absolutely do that. Let me look at the calendar. We didn't go. Not in 1987. Not in 1988 or 1989. Not in any year that followed. We had reasons. Good ones. Real ones. Mortgages, school fees, work responsibilities, aging parents who needed attention. These were not imaginary obstacles. They were the actual substance of a real life being lived. But here is what I know now that I did not know then. There were windows. Not perfect windows, not windows where everything aligned and the timing was impeccable and the trip would have been without complication. But windows. Weeks, sometimes multiple weeks, where the trip was possible. And in those windows, I chose other things. Things that felt more urgent. Things that had a deadline, a meeting, a number attached to them. Portugal had none of those things. Portugal just had Margaret, sitting across a dinner table in 1987, with a look in her eyes that I can still picture exactly. I moved Portugal to one day every single time. In 2019, Margaret was diagnosed with something that made travel complicated. In 2021, she died. The last coherent conversation we had a few days before the end, she was drifting in and out, not always fully present. But there was one moment where she looked at me very clearly, completely there. And she said, we should have gone to Portugal. Not with bitterness, not as an accusation, just as a fact, a quiet, matter-of-fact acknowledgement of something that was now permanently true. We should have gone to Portugal. I held her hand and I said, I know, because there was nothing else to say. And she closed her eyes, and that was the last real exchange we ever had. I am going to tell you about something else. about what was on that 4-page list. Some of it was places, Portugal obviously, but also a small town in Japan that Margaret had always wanted to see, and a part of Scotland where her grandmother was from. But most of it was not places. Most of it was things like have a proper conversation with Margaret about what she was afraid of. Because in 54 years of marriage, I do not think we ever talked about fear. Not really. We were practical people. We talked about what to do about things, not what we felt about them, and asked Margaret what she thought her life would have been like if she hadn't married me. Not because I feared the answer, because I never asked, because we never went that deep, because there was always something more immediate to deal with. And tell Margaret, specifically and in detail, what she meant to me. Not the general, assumed version that long-married couples operate on. The specific version, the true one. I never did any of those things. Not because I didn't feel them, but because I kept moving them to one day. I had a 4-page list of things I meant to do, and I ran out of time. I want to talk to you about something called the arrival fallacy. It is a term from psychology, but you don't need to know the term. You just need to recognize the experience. The arrival fallacy is the belief that when you complete something, when you arrive somewhere, when you hit the goal, when the thing is finally finished, you will feel a sustained sense of satisfaction and peace. And the problem is that you never do, not for long, because as soon as you arrive, you recalibrate. The goal that felt significant from a distance feels ordinary up close, and your mind, which is designed to look forward, immediately starts looking for the next thing to move toward. This is not a character flaw. It is how human psychology works. But here is the part that nobody explains clearly enough. Because of this pattern, because arrival never feels the way we expect it to feel, we are always living in the future, always in the next thing, always in the version of life that will exist when the current obstacle is resolved. And the present, the only place where life actually happens, becomes a waiting room. A waiting room for an arrival that, when it comes, will only reveal another waiting room. I lived in that waiting room for 88 years. Not the whole time. There were moments where I was genuinely here, genuinely present, genuinely inside the actual texture of my actual life. But they were islands, surrounded by the ocean of not yet. I want you to understand the cost of this, not in abstract terms, in the specific, concrete, irreversible terms of a man who has counted his losses. Every one day that never arrived is a specific experience that no longer exists anywhere in the world, not postponed, gone, permanently and completely gone. The conversation with Margaret about what she was afraid of, that conversation does not exist. It never happened. It will never happen. The version of my wife that would have had that conversation with me, the version that was alive and present, and could look at me and tell me something true, that version is no longer accessible. I cannot get it back. There is no making up for it. There is no arriving at a point where the thing becomes available again. It is just gone. That is what postponement actually is. It is permanent deletion disguised as temporary delay. Let me tell you what I think is really happening when we postpone, because I have thought about this for 4 years, alone in a house with 4 pages of evidence, and I think I understand it now. We are not postponing the experience. We are postponing the vulnerability that the experience requires. Going to Portugal with Margaret would have required me to be fully present with her. Not managing something, not solving something, not being useful in a practical sense. Just being there, being a husband, being a companion, being a person with her in a place neither of us had ever been. That kind of presence, full, open, exposed, that is genuinely uncomfortable for certain kinds of people, for certain kinds of men especially. I was that kind of man. I was much more comfortable being productive than being present, much more comfortable solving than feeling, much more comfortable having a purpose in a situation than simply being in it. And so Portugal, the pure, purposeless, present experience of it, felt somehow less urgent than everything that had a task attached to it. Every one day I issued to Portugal was actually a one day I issued to intimacy, to presence, to the specific vulnerability of being with another person with no agenda and no role to play. I was afraid of that. I dressed the fear up as busyness, as responsibility, as practical good sense. But underneath all of it was a man who found it easier to be busy than to be present, who found it safer to do things than to simply be with the person he loved most. That is the confession underneath the story. And I think if you are honest with yourself, you might recognize something in it. Because the things most people keep moving to one day are rarely the things that are genuinely impossible. They are the things that require a kind of openness that we are not quite ready for. The conversation you're not having, the vulnerability you're not showing, the depth you're keeping at a careful distance. Those are the things that live on the 4-page list. I want to ask you to do something today. Make your list, not a bucket list, not a goals list, a postponement list. Every experience, every conversation, every version of yourself that you have been moving to one day. Write it down. Actually write it, on paper if you can. And then I want you to look at it and ask yourself 3 questions. First, if the people involved in these things were no longer here tomorrow, which ones would I grieve most not having done? That question will very quickly show you your actual priorities, not the ones you perform for yourself, but the real ones underneath. Second, what is the real reason I have not done this? Not the practical reason. The real reason underneath the practical reason. Because the practical reason is almost always manageable. It is the real reason that keeps the thing on the list. And third, what would I have to believe about myself and my time for this to move from one day to a specific date in the near future? Because that belief, whatever it is the actual work, not the trip, not the conversation, not the project. The belief that your present life deserves the same energy and investment as your future plans. I am 88 years old. I have a list that is 4 pages long. You probably have a list too. You just haven't written it down yet. Write it down before it gets any longer. Tell me in the comments, what is on your one-day list? Not the safe version, the real one, the thing that has been there for years, the thing you move to one day, every time it comes close enough to actually do. Name it right here. Because saying it out loud is the first step to it not ending up on a list that someone finds after you are gone.